Yo, what's going on, guys? I get a lot of customers who seem unsure about how to actually properly care for their live food. So in today's video, I would like to educate you on exactly how you can care for your live food. I also get a lot of customers asking me why their live food doesn't last for long once they've bought it from a shop. And they always ask me, how can I keep my live food alive for longer? So if you're finding that once you've bought your tub of live food and you take it home and you find that they're dying after a day or two, then this video will certainly help you overcome this problem. In addition to this, I'm going to educate you and also inform you on exactly why it is important that we gut load our feeder insects prior to actually feeding that insect to your animal. So like I say, if you're struggling to keep your live food alive, there are definitely several things which you can do to help prolong their life. And by the end of this video, you will have all of the information that you would need in order to make sure that your live food stays alive for a longer period of time. So let's begin the video, shall we? Okay, so to begin with, I do get a lot of customers come into my shop who don't actually realise that you're supposed to feed your live food once you've bought it from the shop. So to begin with, I'm going to educate you on exactly why you should be feeding your live food once you get home with them after buying them from the shop. So to answer this question, first of all, this is a tub of locusts, okay? Now, I buy this tub of locusts from a supplier, and that supplier will package the locusts into this tub and then they'll ship it out to me. Now this usually will arrive with me the following day. Now once they package it into this tub, they usually won't feed them, which means that your tub of live food has gone through transportation with no food source. Then once this tub arrives at my shop or at a reptile shop, most reptile shops will open the box and simply pull out the tubs and put it straight onto a shelf. Then what happens is once it's on the shelf, there's a high chance that your tub of live food will sit on that shelf for around 4 to 10 days. And most reptile shops, unfortunately, won't actually feed the live food once they arrive at their shop. Which means that by the time that you buy this tub of live food, there's a high chance that this tub has been sat on the shelf for, even if we say a week, 7 days, plus the day of transportation, so 8 days, let's say, without any food. So the first thing that you have to consider is, would you go 8 days without feeding yourself? And I'm sure the answer is no, because by day 8, I guarantee you, you will be starving yourself. And in all honesty, it goes the same for these little guys. So because the reptile shop that you're buying them from isn't feeding the live food, this is why after a day or two of this being in your home, that your live food starts dying off one by one rapidly. And usually this is because you also haven't fed them once you've got them home. So this is the main reason why it's so important that you do feed your live food. Now, I will say that not all reptile shops will just get the delivery and put it straight on the shelf. For example, personally, when I get a delivery of live food, I open the box and then I will take all of the tubs of live food out and I will go through each and every tub one by one and give them food. And once I've given them food, then I'll put them onto the shelf. Now, in my opinion, I believe that all reptile shops should be doing this for their customers anyway, but unfortunately, this isn't the case. So if you are buying your tub of live food and you get home and after 2 days, let's say 5 to 8 of these crickets or locusts are dead, then there's a high chance that your reptile shop isn't actually feeding them. Now, once I've actually fed them and put them onto the shelf, I will then go through each and every tub again every 2 days. And what I'll do is I'll remove the old food and place some new food in. But also what I tend to do is whilst I'm doing this every 2 days, I remove any dead ones. Usually there's only 1 or 2 that might be dead. It is going to happen. You are going to get 1 or 2 die off. But whilst I'm removing the old food and putting new food in, I will go through and take out all of the dead ones, and then I will replace them with new alive ones. So I know that my customers are always buying the correct amount of live food, which they are paying for. Unfortunately, the reason why a lot of reptile shops don't do this is because it does take several hours to actually do this process. I find it takes roughly around 2 hours to actually go through all of my live foods, replace all the foods, replace the dead ones for live ones, and then put them back onto the shelf ready for my customers. But in my opinion, it is 100% worth it because I know that my customers are getting high quality live food, but also I can rest assured knowing that my customers aren't going to come back to me saying, why are my locusts dead? Why are my crickets dead? I only bought these yesterday. But on top of that, I also can rest assured knowing that if my customer doesn't feed their live food, that their reptile is still going to get all of the vitamins and nutrients which it actually needs. So because I put my customer first, I'm also actually putting their reptiles first. But like I say, unfortunately, I can't speak for all reptile shops, and I know this isn't the case for a lot of reptile shops. And I do understand that not all shops have the time to go through all of their live food. I just personally like to do it because I know that they're going to be high quality. Now, it's interesting because I always get people come in raving about my live food quality, and they always compare me to other shops. And they'll also tell me how my live food lasts 10 times as long as pretty much any other shop they buy it from. And honestly, it just comes down to feeding them. Such a simple thing, but goes such a long way. So when you buy your tub of live food, keep in mind that it could have been sat on the shelf without any food for several days. So you're going to want to make sure to feed them. Now in this video, I do actually need to go through all of my live food and replace their food for them. So you will actually see me physically doing this whilst I educate you on exactly how you can care for your live food at home. So next of all, you might be asking yourself, why is it important to gut load your feeder insects then? Now, by gut loading your feeder insects, not only are you actually prolonging their life and keeping them alive longer, but also once you feed this feeder insect to your reptile, what's basically going to happen is your reptile is basically going to reap the benefits of you gut loading your live food. Now, this is because by feeding your live food, it basically allows your live food to thrive and be healthy, but also it provides them with lots of vitamins and nutrients, which will also help them stay alive longer. But also, once you feed it to your reptile, all of those vitamins and nutrients will basically transfer to your reptile, which means that all of the vitamins and nutrients which are inside the live food or the prey item will basically transfer to your reptile, which means that your reptile is going to be getting all of the vitamins and nutrients which they don't usually get. Now, this in itself will have a huge positive impact on your reptile's health and well-being. So this is why it's so important that you do actually feed your feeder insects, or gut load them, should we say. Because not only does it keep them alive longer, it actually benefits your reptiles, which means that your reptile is going to love every single meal which you offer to it. So now I've gone over exactly why it's important that you do feed them and also why it's important to gut load them. We're now going to go over how you can house them once you get them home. And in addition to that, I'm also going to educate you on what you can actually feed to them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through all of my tubs of live food to replace their food because they do need that today. And whilst I'm doing that, I'm going to educate you on obviously all of their housing and also feeding requirements. So once you've bought your live food, I would recommend getting yourself one of these faunariums or even one of these cricket pens to actually house your feeder insects in. And once you have bought the live food, simply place them into your faunarium to house them. Now, I recommend doing this because first of all, it provides your live food with more space to freely move around compared to this small tub which you buy the live food in. The tub that you buy the live food in is purely for transportation and not a forever home for them to be living in. In addition to this, if you were to keep your live food in the tub which you buy them in, the tub can basically start to sweat, and this is because of the moisture within the small size container. And this is basically a reason as to why your crickets will rapidly die off. Like I say, the tub which you buy them in is solely for packaging and also transportation, not a forever home for them. So like I say, get yourself one of these faunariums or cricket pens. You can also use a glass terrarium too, and this will also work great as well. Now, once you've actually got your faunarium or your enclosure that you're going to keep them in, I'd also recommend getting yourself some of these, which are just normal egg crates. And all I simply do is add some of these into the enclosure. Now, the reason why I recommend adding some of these into your enclosure for them is solely as like a hiding space for them, but also it allows them to climb and make use of all of the space which you're providing to them. Now, the great thing about the cricket pen is it actually comes with these little tubes which you can see, and basically the crickets like to hide in these tubes. So all you have to really do is when you go to feed them off is simply pull the tube out, cover the end of the tube so then the crickets don't jump out, and then simply just tap them into your pot of calcium so you can dust them and then simply feed them off. So if you buy a lot more crickets over locusts, let's say, I'd highly recommend the cricket pen as opposed to the faunarium. And if you're experiencing a lot of crickets constantly escaping, this could be a good option for you because you're going to be able to stop that from happening. Now, the faunarium which I showed you is probably the minimum size I would personally offer for your live food as an enclosure for them. Now, I will also mention that you could also use any sort of like tall plastic tub, and this will also work great too. Now, if you do go for the plastic tub option, I would highly recommend drilling a few holes at the top of the enclosure or the top of the tub, so then it allows airflow into your enclosure for them. So now that we've gone over their enclosure and their enclosure sizing for your live foods, now let's actually touch on different substrates which you could actually use. Now, personally, I would recommend adding some substrate into your live food enclosures, and the reason why I recommend doing this is because a lot of live foods, especially crickets, tend to smell quite bad, especially if you have some die off. But in addition to this, adding substrate to your live food enclosures will also provide your live food with humidity. And by doing this, this actually helps keep the smell down and keep it under control. So for substrate, what you could do is use either Repti soil, Arcadia earth mix, jungle bio, BioLife, or even jungle bedding. I'd also recommend mixing some desert sand with the substrate that you buy. And if you do so, I would recommend doing a 70% soil mix to 30% sand. Now, I will say you don't actually need too much substrate. It only needs to be a few inches deep inside the enclosure. Now, if you only have one reptile, let's say, this might be a bit overkill for you. For example, if you're only buying one singular tub of locusts for feeding off to your reptile, then in all honesty, you probably won't actually need to add substrate. And this is because you're probably only going to be housing them for 1 to 2 weeks until you've actually fed them all off and have to go and buy another tub to restock yourself. But if you do have several reptiles, then I would highly suggest adding some substrate because it will help reduce the smell, but also help towards prolonging their life expectancy. Now, if you do add some substrate to your setup, I would also recommend adding some tropical grey isopods or even springtails to the enclosure. And this is because, first of all, isopods and springtails are fairly cheap, but also they breed very quickly, and they're great to have with inside your live food enclosures as a cleanup crew. And basically what they will do is they'll go around all of the enclosure and eat all of the poop from your live food. But in addition to this, they will also go and eat the dead insects. Now, if you do add isopods and springtails, I'd highly recommend adding some leaf litter as a food source for your springtails and isopods, just in case there isn't enough food source available from your insects pooping or dying off. But also another reason why I'd highly recommend adding some leaf litter is it does actually provide a food source for your live food as a last resort. So for example, let's say you forgot to feed your live food and you're sat at work thinking, oh no, I didn't actually do that this morning. You can actually relax because you know that there is technically food available for them if they were seriously that hungry. Now, by adding substrate to your enclosure, you're basically trapping humidity within the substrate, so the humidity will stay at a constant percentage. So once you've actually added your substrate to the enclosure, simply give it a gentle mist, then add your egg crates, and then simply just add your feeder insects to the enclosure. Now, the enclosures which we've just gone over is more tailored for crickets or locusts. So now I'm going to go over roaches and also larvae. So if you buy roaches, you're going to want an enclosure slightly different to the one that I've just gone over. So for roaches, I'd recommend a tall, dark black tub. The reason why I would recommend a tall, dark black tub is because they, first of all, love the dark, but also it will encourage your roaches to actually breed. Now, the only real difference is I would make sure that you add your egg crates into the enclosure vertically as opposed to horizontally, and this will basically provide them with a lot of hiding spaces, but also make use of all of the height within the tub. Now, with larvae, which is things like mealworms, waxworms, morrow worms, silkworms, and even hornworms, I would recommend getting a faunarium or a plastic long container so they have lots of space horizontally. For the larvae, you want more width of an enclosure, because by providing more width of an enclosure for them, it basically stops them from being piled on top of each other. Now, for a substrate for your larvae, honestly, I would just go and get yourself some cheap bog standard oats and simply just add that in as a substrate. You can also put the oats into a blender and blend the oats right up to create a lot finer of a dust, and again simply add it to your enclosure. Like I say, you don't have to chuck it through a blender, but if you did want to go that extra length, then you can do that. Now, the reason why I would recommend adding oats for your larvae as a substrate is because it actually provides them with a food source as well as obviously a substrate. Now, once you've added your oats to your enclosure for your larvae, all I would simply do is add an egg crate and then simply just add your larvae. So that's basically all of the basics that you need to know regarding housing for the different types of live food. Let's now dive into what you can actually feed to them. So for your crickets, locust, and also your larvae, I'd recommend feeding them a slice of potato or even a slice of carrot. Both of these are fairly cheap, but will provide them with lots of vitamins and nutrients. In addition to that, it's going to help keep them alive for a lot longer. I would recommend putting the potato or carrot on top of the egg crates which you have in the enclosure. The reason being is by putting it on top of the egg crate, it makes it a lot easier for you to actually clean, but also it prevents the substrate from going moldy. If for whatever reason the egg crate was to go moldy, all you simply have to do then is remove that egg crate and simply change it for a new one. Alternatively, there are products on the market like this. This is by Arcadia, and all you simply do with these supplements is simply sprinkle it into the enclosure for the live food to actually eat. I'd recommend feeding your live food every 2 days, but make sure that you remove old uneaten food daily. Now, for roaches, I'd recommend feeding them either apple or even carrot. A lot of people also like to offer them fish flakes as a source of protein for their roaches. But make sure to keep in mind that roaches need more protein in their diet. So last of all, let's discuss hydration. Now, personally, I'd recommend refraining from actually putting a water bowl in the enclosure with them, because this tends to make your insects drown. So instead, I'd recommend feeding them something like romaine lettuce to provide them with all the hydration they actually need. So that's basically everything that you need to know in order to keep your live food alive, healthy, and thriving. I'd also recommend keeping them in a warm area and not in a cold environment. But like I say, once you buy them from the shop, transfer them into their new homes and get them fed ASAP. So that's pretty much it for today's video, guys. I will actually be doing separate videos where I go into a lot more depth for each of the different live foods. I'll also make sure that I leave links to the products which I have mentioned within this video in my description below. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop us a comment and I'll make sure to get back to you. I hope that you enjoyed this video and I hope you have a lot of success keeping your live food alive a lot longer. Don't forget to drop us a like to let us know that you enjoyed the video, and also make sure to follow us on our social media pages for lots more reptile related content. And if you want to learn lots more tips and tricks to do with reptile keeping, make sure you subscribe to our channel. We have lots of videos lined up for this year and I'm excited to get them filmed and posted. But in addition to that, by subscribing, you also help my channel grow, which allows me the opportunity to make more content for you. But yeah, I hope that you enjoyed this video and I hope that you found it valuable. And yeah, I suppose I shall see you in my next video. See ya!